Hey folks, nice to see everybody here at Three's Inn. I'm going to begin today by telling you a story that occurred after I left Vance in 1978. Might have been early 79, but I'm thinking it was 78. At any rate, uh, we were playing cards one night over at Mikey's house. Jerry Frechette and his wife were there, and Dick Goddard was there. Now, Dick was the commander of the 38th Squadron at the time. So we're all sitting around playing cards. We had ordered pizza, and of course, we had a few beers to go along with it. When Dick got a call from the command post, and seemed there had been an aircraft incident with one of his IPs, Carl. After the incident, became known as Fast Carl. Now, I'd met Fast Carl before I left, and I liked him. He was down to earth, kind of a country boy, laid back. And he'd come to the squadron from A7s out of England Air Force Base. So anyway, apparently what had happened is Fast Carl was out on this low-level ride with this kid. And at the time, we flew our low levels at 5,000 feet. You can get hypoxia at that altitude almost. Eventually, were able to go down to, I think, 1,000 feet or maybe even 500 feet as years went by. But at this time, I think it was at 5,000 feet. So it was really boring for the instructor pilots. Of course, the kids would love it, and so forth. Anyway, coming from A7s, where they flew low levels, typically at 50 to 100 feet on occasion, this 5,000 feet was, God, you could almost see the whole world from up there, at any rate. So they're drilling along, the kid's hitting all his points, and he's doing well. And finally, on the last leg, ingressing to our target, which was a dam there in Oklahoma, Fast Carl takes the jet. So he says to the kid, he says, all right, he says, let me show you how this thing really works. So he takes a jet and rolls it like this and starts a slow dive, and he's picking up airspeed, picking up smash, and he levels off a couple hundred feet above the deck. And he pushes the airspeed up to, I don't know, 480, somewhere around there. So now he's smoking. This kid has never been that low that fast. So this kid it got his attention. So as they come into the target, Carl makes a little bit of a turn off the course, and then he performs what we used to call a pop-up maneuver. He pulled the nose up to a fairly high climb angle, and had the kid kill the squawk, turn off the IFF so that air traffic control couldn't track the altitude. So he goes up to about 10, 12,000 feet, somewhere in that, zooms it up, and he rolls the airplane over like this. At the same time, he's looking over his left shoulder to find the dam, and he finds it. So he floats the airplane over, and then he rolls back out into a 45-degree dive angle. So he's coming down in a 45-degree dive angle. That may not sound much, but when you're sitting up here in the front of this T-38 and you see 45 degrees of dive, the whole world's in front of you. It's just dirt. So anyway, they're heading downhill, and that dam's getting bigger and bigger. So now, as they come down, Carl simulates a bomb release, and then he rolls and makes a 4G pull out of the target area and starts jinking the airplane to avoid simulated ground fire. So he's pulling 4 to 5 Gs and jinking around, and this kid's just, you never seen anything like this before. And then he pulls up and heads back to the base for a couple patterns before they land. So they come back into the traffic pattern, they pitch out, come around, and they put their gear down, and they get 3 green light, or I think they get a green light, or the lighting isn't what they wanted to see. I think they get 3 green lights, but they get a red light in the handle. It's been so long. Anyway. So you get this red light handle, which signifies an unsafe gear. So they go around and they leave the gear down. That was our procedure. Hey, don't touch anything. Just leave it alone until you get it sorted out. And they fly, come back, and this time they fly over the runway supervisory unit, the little house on the prairie, and the controller puts the glasses on him and said, "Hey, Carl," he says, "your gear doors are missing." And that's why the red light and handle didn't go up, because the gear doors, when they would close after the gear doors for the main gear would open, the gear would come down, and then they close. Well, when they closed, then the red light and handle would go out. I think that's the way the thing worked. But anyway, so he tells them, your gear doors are missing. They're not just not down, they're missing. But he says, your gear looks good. So they came around, landed, and taxied in. And so they asked him what happened. They said, flew a low level, everything was normal. And don't know why those gear doors would have come off. Well, now what they do is they separate these two guys. Carl sticks to his story. He knows better. And the kid, they said, all right, kid, you want to tell us what happened? And his kid says, I've never been so afraid in all my life. He says, it just scared the living hell out of me. He said, Jesus Christ. He said, we're flying along. Next thing he knows, he says, I'm looking up at the squirrels. And he says, we come smoking in the target. He pulls this thing up, rolls it. He said, then we come down and he says, and we dropped these bombs, but there were no bombs. He said, and then he's dodging ground fire. There's no ground fire. He said, we're pulling these G's and so forth. And he said, just scared the living crap out of me. So they said, okay, we got a little different story here. So now they bring Fast Carl and they say, you want to tell us what really happened? And he says, yeah, he says, I suppose I should. So he told him. Turns out, I think they later found the gear doors somewhere out there in countryside of Oklahoma. But that was a ride. That was a low-level ride. That kid will remember all his life. And boy, Dick was burned. He could hardly concentrate on the beer drinking, the pizza, or playing cards that night. So that was the story of Fast Carl. See ya.